Hello and welcome back. SNP formally backs decriminalisation of drugs, and I think that's a good thing. They might be targeting the wrong audience in order to win back votes. I mean, I'm all for that policy of decriminalisation. In fact, I'm for legalisation more so than just decriminalisation. The difference is between possession, which would then be decriminalisation. You can have normally less than 5 grams, maybe 2 grams, depending on the drug, and that would be deemed as possession. Whereas if it's more than that, it would be deemed as distribution, and so that is still illegal. So in that instance, yes, you can have it, and they're not criminalising the drug addicts, but they're still criminalising the drug dealers, because drugs are harmful, and this deterioration of the person, their family, and their community on a bigger level, of course. And so that's what they're trying to combat here. However, that does mean that you don't know what's going into the drugs, in which case you're still going to have the problems caused by poor mixing or poor maintenance of drugs. There are not going to be any standards at all, and because there's no transparency, you're not going to know who is good stuff and who is bad stuff, essentially. I'm not for the government getting in on that for regulation, per se. But I am about them getting out of it so that people can see what's going on and then decide for themselves if they wish to get the pure product or not. And they're doing this in order to combat drug-related death. They're saying that they can't get the help that they need because people aren't coming forward when they are addicted because they know it's illegal. And of course, most of the issues are from people not having a reliable drug source. But if you wish to go, and that's because if they have poor mixes, then they could be getting something which is toxic and fatal, or if they have a stronger dose than normal, then of course they can overdose on that, even though they think they're administering the same amount of the drug, but the actual proportions of it mean that it's a much higher proportion of the main drug, and therefore they overdose from it. Instead of being 40%, maybe it's 80%, so they're getting double the dose and overdosing, something like that, if not to a greater extent. And that's what they're trying to combat here by allowing these people to come forward. I would say that it's funny though, because that they are saying, well, hey, we should have decentralization and we should be able to govern ourselves. At the same time saying, no, we should definitely stay in the EU, not rid ourselves of this bureaucratic monstrosity, as people who push the decentralisation narrative, like myself, would strongly recommend and find a necessity. So they go into statistics and say that Scotland was 3 times the highest. So there were 1,200 drug-related deaths in Scotland 2018, by far the highest total in the EU, and 3 times that of the UK as a whole. And they say that existing drugs legislation is reserved to Westminster, and therefore they're saying that they want decentralisation. They want to allow that to be regulated by Holyrood instead of Westminster, and enable Scotland, or Glasgow in particular, to have their own laws as a trial, at least. And they say this has led to a standoff between the two governments over policy, with the Home Office refusing to give permission for a trial of safe consumption rooms for drugs in Glasgow. This would be similar to what's done here in Sweden, I believe it is. Is it Switzerland? Sweden, with decriminalisation of heroin, so people can go in and get whatever dose of heroin they would like, as long as it wouldn't kill them. Then they can go on with their day. As long as they don't take it out of the doctor's office, then they can have as much as they want, whenever they want. And they find that people tend to lessen the amount that they take. Johan Hari has done a lot of research, and he's done many talks into addiction, and mentions this quite a bit. Portugal is, of course, another good place to say that, instead of spending the money that they would have done on imprisoning people, they now spend it in trying to rehabilitate them. But if you wish to go to the bigger problem, then it is people who don't have meaning in their lives, and therefore they try to tap themselves out of the situation with whatever substances they can get their hands on. And of course they turn to drugs, and alcohol is, of course, a drug, and that's the most popular one, unless you include caffeine. Then they try to tap themselves out of reality, and when you have the deterioration of communities and people feeling as if they are important in their life story, they are not the main character in their own life story. And if they're not writing their own story, then who's writing it? it's better to be the main character in your own story than just an NPC in somebody else's story. And you can see some Reddit posts of this, of people who work as, let's say, shop assistants in supermarkets, realizing that they are just the NPCs in other people's lives, essentially. And that's what it boils down to. So these people are much more susceptible to take drugs because they can't see meaning in their own lives because they're not getting fulfillment. In order to combat that, I would say to anybody who's already down that road, or going down that road, or considering that path, that your best bet is to do something that makes a difference, essentially. It's to empower yourself however you can. And the best way to start this, in my opinion, and of many others of course, is through exercise. And ideally that's done at the beginning of the day, so it sets you up for the day. But if in the evening to de-stress yourself, then so be it. But chances are you're tapping out of life, and therefore it's better to do it in the beginning to set yourself up, because the first half hour of the day, more often than not, determines how the rest of your day is going to go. So set it up how you want it to go. Similar thing with micromanaging, that we only have so many decisions we can make in a day. So if you set up your first and last hour to be really micromanaged, you know exactly what you're doing, then you're free to make the decisions for the rest of the day of whatever you want to do. And most applicable to surgeons, of course, but also shown by Steve Jobs always wearing the same outfit. So he has fewer, less important decisions to make, and you can just make the more important decisions to keep Crapple afloat. Obviously by that I don't support Apple, but nonetheless, the idea still stands. So that's what I would posit to you. Do something worthwhile, and in order to do that, it's pick up a weight and carry it. And if you just want an endorphin release, then exercise is great. I'm not going to say that's going to beat any drug, but by using that as a start-off point and then building up other things, that will beat any feeling from drugs over a longer time period. And I won't say why, but you're just going to have to trust me on that. Of course, hallucinogens like psilocybin could be, they're not an exception, but they could also be useful, seeing as they are not addictive. In fact, if anything, they're anti-addictive. And just taking some of that and having one of the transcendental hallucinogenic experiences then lowers your fear of mortality substantially. It's the most reliable stop smoking aid there is. I think it's 80% of users who have a transcendental experience just on their first time quit smoking straight away, because it puts your life into a bigger perspective that, as you, I don't know how to explain it really, I suppose you're feeling at one with the world, that you're just a part of it with the ebbs and flows, and the negativity doesn't feel so serious anymore. So that's what I go forward with, and hopefully they will also decriminalise psilocybin and we can all go up to Glasgow for our acid trips. But I mean that will help tourism, if nothing else, from around Scotland at least, seeing as Thomas Cook has collapsed. So with that in mind, thank you all very much for watching, and I hope you get on it, as Jocko would say, good. And yeah, do some exercise, get your heart rate up, allow the increased oxygen flow to affect your brain to give you a much better cognitive ability, and put yourself forward into the world. Do what is right, not what is expedient. Be truthful, honest and open with everyone that you meet, and here, just my workout for you, and nothing else. Clean your room. But you'll need to exercise to get in the mood. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Enjoy the remainder of your weekend, and have a good week.